right, good morning. I can't believe it, but this is week 10 of our 2021 Watershed Wednesdays series. I'm Lydia Brinkley with the Upper Susquehanna Coalition. Watershed Wednesdays are hosted by the USC and the Otsego County Conservation Association. They're kind of in place of our 2021 Watershed Forum. So we will be holding these sessions every Wednesday through the end of October. So we have about 3 left after this one. And the full schedule is posted on our Facebook and website. You can sign up for email announcements on the USC website under the Watershed Wednesdays tab. So to get things started today, we have Mark Watts presenting Headcuts and Streams, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So Mark is the district manager for the Chemung County Soil and Water Conservation District and has been with the district for 37 years, district manager for 30. And he's worked with numerous federal, state, and local agencies on stormwater training and getting soil and water conservation districts up to stormwater training needs. He works to deliver training on the stormwater construction general permit for MS Forum communities and the New York State Department of State Codes Division requirements. And he's worked with MS4 communities in Chemung County to develop the comprehensive stormwater management plan. Thank you for that, Mark. So through technical assistance and training, Mark has worked to minimize the impacts from highway streams, mining, and landowner land use actions. Mark also has a degree from SUNY Cobleskill and is a CPESC certified person since 1999. Take it away, Mark.
Hopefully all you can hear me. Good morning, everyone. Did want to thank Lydia for that nice intro. I also want to thank Amy for working with me yesterday to make sure that our IT is going to work for us. So we're going to talk a little bit about headcuts that we deal with in Chemung County. We'll start right off. Usually this is what we like to see in Chemung County. I don't know how many, I don't think we have very many of these streams that look this way. I wish they all did, where we had plenty of access to a floodplain, no erosion control. I know Lydia probably like to see more forested buffers, and that wouldn't be too bad to see here too, because it looks like it could handle it. But what you're going to look at next, this is what you usually see in Chemung County. We have some very incised streams. And one of the biggest problems we see is when they start to incise like this, we lose all access to the floodplain. I think we're seeing a lot more flooding downstream because a lot of our streams are incised. And then what also happens here is it's going to start to widen, and then this forestry buffer is going to start to fall in on us. So we try to look at what we can do with headcuts. The definition of a headcut: it's instability that progresses upstream and downstream from a local disturbance. Here you can see it starting to erode and deposits downstream, and it will migrate upstream, and it'll keep getting deeper, deeper, and wider. Now, some headcuts are natural. Niagara Falls, for example, is a natural headcut that goes about 2.5 feet per year. One year in 1969, it went so far that they did try to de-water to see what was going on, and figured it was just a headcut that was naturally occurring. You can call it a headcut, or we also can talk about what they call the channel evolution model. The channel evolution model has 5 stages that a stream can go through. As you can see here in one, you have a stable one where we have a nice little thaw leg with a great floodplain that we can access. What happens in stage 2 is your stream will start to incise or downcut, which they call a head cutting. And stage 3, that headcut gets so far, now it's going to start to widen. And that's when we start to lose some of our trees and some of the banks on there. But in stage 4, it does start to restabilize, and we start to get some floodplain benches back as it becomes stable again in 5. The only problem with going through the channel evolution model is you see here on the bottom how much floodplain we have to access, and if we didn't have that problem of incising, we have a much bigger area that we can have as a floodplain. Here's a natural one that's starting up. They call this a nick point. If we don't do something right now to stabilize this nick point, it's going to continue to migrate upstream and keep cutting down. And then the next stage, it's going to widen. And as it does that, it's more and more going to stop us from being able to access that floodplain where we'd like to see the stream have the ability to lose some of its energy during big storms. And the worst thing when they do start to widen and we start to lose all this riparian buffer that Lydia likes us to see keep in stock. You can see a fence post here, and all we can do is keep moving the fence back farther and farther. if we don't do something in there to stop that head cut. And this also brings a lot of debris and deposition down that we don't need, that affects our water quality. Here's a little bit with a picture with a channel evolution model. The red shows a stage 1 where it's pretty stable. And what you'll see is probably all we need is a couple feet of water and we can access this floodplain. Once our channels become incised, it stays in that channel longer and we have less and less of our water being able to access the floodplain up top. Here's one that I got from Dave Derrick of a head cut. This gentleman's like 6 foot tall, and you can see how much of a head cut that's starting. And again, if we don't do something to slow this head cut, it's going to continue to migrate upstream and it's going to get in and all these trees are going to fall in. Here's one that happened in Missouri and you can see the size of it. Here's a car, a vehicle that's in there. And this is a head cut. We don't know if it's because of something that happened naturally downstream or what, but you can see this is starting to migrate up. And the only thing that stopped this was these culverts. You can see on the other side, this is what we would have liked to see the stream look like, and we could have got access to the floodplain. And also they have a big lack of any kind of riparian buffer or any forestry products. I'm sure in a couple of years, if we took a picture here again, this head cut would be migrating up to the road to that culvert also. So there are ways that culverts do stop the head cut. A lot of times though, now they're talking about, they want us to use bottomless culverts or bottomless bridges. We'll have to keep an eye on them, because if we have a bottomless culvert, this head cut would have migrated right up through and probably taken the road out. So what are the worst outcomes from head cuts? I think the worst thing is our disconnection from the natural floodplain. I don't know how many times I've been out to a landowner's property and he said, God, 20 years ago, I could step across this stream and now you can park a tractor trailer in it. So we know that's a head cut that's occurring. How can we stop that? And then we have our eroding bed and banks, and then you're going to have gravel deposition at some point. A lot of our towns are trying to change this culture about we need to get in there and clean our streams and dredge our streams. They think if we dredge it, we're going to get better flood control, and they do get some kind of a product out of it. But we're trying to show them, though, if they dredge this now, we could actually be starting a head cut. If we dredge too much or don't do it wisely, which I'm not saying that we can never take gravel out of streams, but I think you'll see we have to make some good decisions on, if we do this, are we going to do something that's going to affect us upstream? But if you take too much gravel out, you're going to create a head cut that's going to go up and migrate upstream. And I think we've shown them now that here's a one I think we got from Bradford County. This was the original stream. They dredged it down 3 feet to try to get some more flood control in there. And then this line shows you really don't get any more flood protection by dredging a stream. Here's a short video we'll show from the Ems River. It's a stream that's coming down through and very braided. This is one where a lot of times you'll see them come in and they'll take this gravel out to use on the roads and that and thing. But as they do that, you see it fills right back in, which they always said, hey, it comes right back, but at what cost? At the cost of the banks that are upstream. You'll see these banks are starting to erode. Are going to start to affect this house. And so how much, is it too much of a cost by taking this gravel out? Should we look at something else? And you can see how it continues to take the sides out of these banks, and the sinuosity is getting more and more. But now you see this is coming into being a very big gravel deposition. And so we would always get the call and say, hey, we need to take this out so we can protect this house. Not always the best thing to do, because I think you'll see when they come in and take this out here pretty quick, we're going to watch a head cut migrate right up this channel here. So it should be in a few minutes where we have the town come in and take some more gravel out this area. And you can see we're losing banks all the time because of the gravel that we took out. So here he's taking it out, and you'll see right here a head cut start right up through there. You can see that head cut moving right up there, going deeper and deeper, and now it's going to widen. So now we're doing something that's not good for the environment upstream. Going to be less and less that we can be a part of that floodplain. And are we starting to erode out where we're losing even our riparian buffers? Here's just another quick one. It's going to show how fast these head cuts can occur when the stream's going. You'll see it start here. and just migrate right up. There's a head cut coming up, so it's digging deeper and deeper. And once it digs deeper, as the CMM model shows, it's going to start to widen. And when it widens, it is going to start to make some of these floodplain benches or bars, point bars, and that's what we have to use now for our floodplain protection. So what can we do? Well, is there a way that we can install some grade control to slow that head cut? Can we start to look at wise removal of gravel deposition? Best thing you can always do is walk the stream to see what's causing the issue. And then is there ways that we can try to reconnect to that some type of floodplain? A couple projects we've done in Chemung County. West Hill is in the town of Big Flats. This is a county road, and you can see that culvert is filled right full of gravel. So it's not like you have a choice. You have to take that gravel out. It gets expensive. They had to rent these two dingoes or whatever they call them for like 2 weeks. And that's what they did every day, go in there and clean that out. So we did clean it out, and then we got to look at it and say, well, what's the next thing we can do? Because if we don't do something, it's going to fill right back in. Because right here, this is the culvert, is just out of sight. It outlets here and runs down the tributary. This is another tributary that comes in, and this is about a 5-foot height. If we don't take care of this or do something with this, the next rainfall that comes down is going to start a head cut right here. It's going to migrate right upstream, and all these trees are going to end up coming into the stream. It's going to fill this back in, and our culvert's going to fill right back in again. Naturally, in a stream situation, we talked about imbricated rock or rocks in compression. If we can stack rocks like a shingle type, they seem to hold well in water. So through Dave Derrick, he talked about what we called an engineered rock riffle, which we place rock shingled back up, and when the water presses on it, presses down, so they do stay. And that's what we did here, is an engineered riffle. It's about 5 feet. These are all shingled in. So we're kind of drawing a line in the sand. We're saying we don't want this stream to downcut any farther than this and get a stable stream bed. We've changed over the years from doing more bank stabilization to more bed stabilization, trying to stop these head cuts. So if we stop that here, we're going to keep this flow open for that culvert. And then we even went upstream of the culvert, and this was about a 4-foot one. But if we didn't put this rock in, again, this 4-foot head cut would just migrate upstream and start to widen, and it would fill the culvert up again. So we tried to put these in for grade control. The next project I'll talk about is Panther Lick. This is actually 2 projects we did. We're actually working on project 2 right now as we speak. What this did in 2014, we had an extreme storm event that caused a great deal of head cutting and widening up through here. We lost some trees. Somebody even lost a garage up through here. And it came down, and then there was another stream here, a bigger stream, Catherine Creek, which wouldn't allow the sediment to go in. So this all became an avulsion. It just filled right full of gravel. And it is true, the people there said, we got to get that gravel out to open that back up. We said, we know that's true, and we knew we had to do that, but let's step back and take a look at this. We need to stop this head cut before we take this gravel out, because if we take this gravel out, we're just making more room for more gravel to come down. So we want to stop that head cut. Here's just some pictures of Panther Lick in the upper reaches of Project 1, where we had some eroding banks, starting to go through a channel evolution model, started to widen. We started losing a lot of our trees. They were coming down, so we went in there, brought in some rock. It was engineered by Jimmy Joe Carl, and this is a trout stream, so we did have to go through all the DEC and Army Corps permits. We did get it permitted. We did have to do some hardening of the banks because some of these side hills were just bringing down way too much sediment, and we weren't able to get vegetation on because they were so steep. We started building some rock walls on the side. This is one end. We had a steep bank that comes down. We did rock this, and we rocked it so that the 1.5 to 2 year storm event would be protected by this rock, so it won't eat into the bank. Once we got a bigger stream event, we did make this floodplain bench on top with willows and other vegetation. So when we get big events, we're trying to give it a release so it can come up here and work on that bench. That bench is located right here. We did another bench above that one. Here we're trying to put stream coat willow in there. And also we keyed it back with some stone. So again, when it gets real big storm, it can come up onto this bench. That's what it looks like as of last week. So water can get up in here. We got some good vegetation even starting on that hillside now, because we're keeping the pressure off of the banks and put some grade control in so that we're not getting a lot of deposition of soil. And here's just the keys it shows. So we put those keys in so when the water does come up on top, it doesn't wash out the soil that's behind us. So project 2 is going to be gravel removal. This is one we're working on right now. This is probably 3 foot higher than it used to be. This bank right here has rock riprap on it. So we know we got to take some of that out just to get back to the toe of that rock. We've had evulsions that just go out through. This goes wherever it wants because it has no stream anymore. And the other thing we have a problem with on this one is back in the day when they used to clean them and didn't take it out, they just made gravel berms on each side. So we are going in there and we're taking a lot of these berms out in places, like 50-foot sections of it, so that when the stream comes up, it does have access back to the floodplain. I was hoping to have pictures of this being done, but we got rain Monday night and actually can't. We're going to probably be another week before we can even go in there now. But as you can see, this was Monday, a drop of water in that. If you go in there now, it would be up to your shoulders. That's how much water comes out of this watershed. White Howell is another project we did in Wellsburg. Again, we had an incised channel that disconnected from the floodplain. Again, we wanted to go in there and start to put in some grade control. On this one, we use what we call a rock cross vein, or I call them vortex weirs. These are V's pointed upstream, and they slope towards the middle. And why do we do that? Here's one that's in, and you can see when this is higher, and it goes down, this is lower, and then it comes higher again, it folds that water right into the center. So we take care of trying to get all our velocity out of our water by going into the middle. And you can see the water along the banks is quiet. So it's helping us not erode the banks, but also giving us grade control. Here's some of those when we put in, this is, I believe, in 2011. This was just last week. Here again is the vortex weir cross vein. You see how the water stays in the center. We do put plunge pool protection in ours a little bit. We go out just a little ways and then we let it go, because this is probably 6 inches deep. And then we do have a hole here now that's probably 2 foot deep. And as it goes through this system, this all takes energy out of the water. So it works well for us by utilizing these cross veins in our system. Here we have the cross veins, and we did make some more floodplain benches. You know, we would have loved to gotten back up into here, but it would have taken way too much money and way too much fill to try to get back up to those. So we did build just some floodplain benches, and that's what it looks like today. There's the bench. It's starting to get some sycamore trees on it and veg up a little bit for us. This is looking downstream. The velocity on this stream coming out of this bridge was so fast that we actually had to grout some of this rock, which we don't really like to use that much hard thing, but it's all we could do. There's what it looks like today. It's starting to look more and more like a natural system. We got some vegetation growing on there. They're not raw banks like we had before. This is upstream. And again, it's starting to, you know, this is 10 years later. So we got the grade control stays in there, starting to veg up pretty good. And I think we've stopped probably 80% of the gravel deposition that used to come down this stream and plug another stream up by using the grade control in there. Edinburgher Farm is one that USC helped fund some of this. This is the project location up through here. And we think what caused this is they had a gravel operation going here. Every year they were in there getting gravel out because it was an easy place to get it. It does pretty nice fine gravel. But what it did is it did cause this to keep head cutting worse and worse. So next picture I'm going to show you is this bridge right here. This was probably 15, 20 years ago. We put this cross vein in. These are 3 foot rocks that we put in to protect the footer of that bridge. Again, if we didn't put this in and our head cut started to migrate upstream, we've had a lot of these where it starts to expose the footers and we have to do something. So we put this in and it was good. We were in good shape. They kept taking gravel out from the bottom. This is another picture just of the cross vein showing how it sends water into the center, and we can dissipate the energy in there on a plunge pool. So we're slowing some of the erosion down. But this right there is that weir. We had to replace this other weir and an engineered riffle. And I would say this is an 8 to 10 foot drop from there to there. Plus that 3, it counts to be 11 feet. So the head cut was 11 feet deep in here by taking all the gravel out of there. And we still had to go downstream and continue to put engineered riffles in here to try just to stop the down cutting. Because this is one area we did have to rock this. We had this fence up here. It was a grass riparian buffer for the cattle. It was 30 feet from that fence line. That's how much it's moved over by that widening. So we did put rock in here. The elevation at the top of this rock is 6 inches higher than this bar over here. So our hopes are if we get a big rain, this will be a floodplain bench. And then again, we put an engineered riffle in here. We shingle these rock. And these are 18-inch rocks. So we're catching about 4 foot at a time. I think there's 6 structures. So a 24 foot in elevation by the time you get to the end, that we've stopped, hopefully, the head cut from migrating down. Again, we put in a cattle crossing, and to make sure we maintain that cattle crossing, we did put grade control on the bottom, and then we're using this as our floodplain bench. Just some more engineered riffles. Again, we've taken this down, so we veg this up with vegetation and some willows, but that's also going to be used as a floodplain bench to give us some place to go and dissipate the energy in our bigger events. Engineered riffle and rock vein in concurrence. So the low flow will come over here, but when it gets high, we do use this one over here. It was something we tried. Will these work in conjunction by putting them in together? That's that structure. And then we did another riffle right down here. This is where they used to take the gravel out. But we've stopped enough, we think, gravel deposition that they're telling us, hey, there's no gravel to take out of there anymore. So we think we've done a good job of stopping all that coming down and from starting to go into that channel evolution model where it would just keep going down and keep widening. So when dealing with the head cut issues, what should we do? First thing, let's always walk the stream and find what is the root cause. Is this just a natural occurrence, or is it man-made? Are we taking too much gravel out of that system, causing it to have bigger issues upstream? And then see if you can slow down the head cut with grade control. Can we put in engineered rock riffles or rock veins, or just something, even using logs, just something so that we're stopping that from not going head cutting and going down further. And as we always say, let's try to reconnect to some type of floodplain. I think we need those areas that when we get a big rain, we need places for that water to be able to go and slow down, spread it out, slow it down, and seep it in. So that's what we have so far. So good luck. I think we made it in 20 minutes or so. So I guess it's open to questions.
Yes, and we do have someone who has their hand up. So Trent, I'm going to open up your microphone and let you ask your question directly to Mark. You should be able to unmute yourself and talk now.
Good morning, everybody. This is Trent Knapp from the Susquehanna River Basin Commission. Mark, really enjoying this. I guess I have a question for you regarding residential landowners and personal property. Is there any kind of grants or funding out there available to folks if they have a stream issue on their own property? I see you rubbing your face.
Well, we actually
answer.
In Chemung County, we do have a program. In 2011, we started a program, and it actually was the idea of one of the towns, and we actually stole it from Steuben County. They actually, in the county, purchased us equipment. We now have 4 excavators and some dozers and operators that know how to do the stream work. And what we tell a landowner is that they buy the materials, we'll place it. So any landowner in the county that's on private property, if they buy the rock or they're willing to do that, we'll place it for them.
Okay. You're not aware though of any kind of FEMA funding or grants or anything out there that folks could apply for, maybe to pay for material?
They'll tell you there's money in hazard mitigation. We've had a real hard time getting that because of cost benefit ratios and that. I haven't found any money where we've been able to get money for the private individual besides the one program where, like I said, if they buy the material, we'll place it.
Okay. No, I appreciate it. My grandparents, they're out of Cortland County, Marathon, New York specifically. And they've been having some issues with a with a stream in their backyard their whole life, and they're kind of at their wits' end. So I appreciate the information.
Yeah, I know that Amanda knows they have a nice stream program up there, but I would think they probably have to buy the materials and pay for a contractor to do it.
Okay, Amanda Barber, right?
Yes.
Yes, I'm familiar. Great. I appreciate it, Mark.
All right, Trent, thank you.
Thanks, Trent. All right, our next question is from Tom. And Tom asked, what do you do if you can't find an obvious head cut and it's simply a large amount of debris that comes off the hillsides during every large event? Do you just keep cleaning it up over and over?
If it's debris, it's not gravel, it's just debris, trees and stuff like that. We do try to go in there and just keep the trees out of it. Now it depends. There are some trees that we found, if it's embedded and starting to slow the water down, not cause a head cut, and it's not turning water where we're having an issue eroding the banks, there's sometimes that we do leave debris in the stream.
Yeah, Tom clarified and said it's both gravel and debris.
And it's not a head cut, I'd be surprised that there's not a head cut starting. We try to minimize how much gravel we take out of streams now because it's a never ending process. And all we're doing is making more room. That gravel's got to be coming from somewhere. There's got to be a reason.
All right.
I'll have to come up and see you, Tom, before I retire.
Right. We'll connect you guys. All right. Jira did pop some really useful information for landowners, cost share opportunities in the chat. So if anyone's interested, please take a look at that. And Bailey asked, does the LO also pay for the engineering design that goes along with the purchase of the materials? Sorry, landowner. Thanks, Bailey.
Well, actually, we're kind of lucky. We have a Jimmy Joe Carl's we have a professional engineer on staff working through the MS4 program, and we try to get him to help us out. And so he's paid for through other funds, so we can help a landowner out without having to charge them for engineering. We're lucky that way.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Are there any other questions? Anyone else? Feel free to raise your hand and we can open up your microphone, or you can pop it in the chat or the question and answer box. All right. And while you guys think of your last questions, I am going to share the screen real quick to show off next week's presenter. He looks pretty familiar here. But Mark will be joining us again for talking about stabilization of road ditches. So it should be another great project and program to listen to. You're getting a lot of kudos in the chat there, Mark, so you can take a look at that. Yeah, well, I guess there's no other questions. So,
hey, I'll ask one more question, Mark. Looked like in all of your photos, knotweed was just everywhere. Do you ever not find a knotweed?
Now, in the watersheds we've been working in, there's a lot of knotweed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the one thing, now we have a board member on ours, unbeknownst to us, beekeepers love knotweed. They said that makes the best honey and the best seller. So we got some pushback that, hey, we want the knotweed to stay.
yeah, we've heard the same thing over here at OCCA, Mark. It's come up multiple times that
And
people are torn on that.
I don't know what you do with God. And it's a jungle out there in some of these watersheds.
Yeah, it kind of takes over. Some of the events that have happened, our team was out on a paddle and it looked like beaver dams, and it was just knotweed that had washed into the water during some of these large events. And
Yeah.
It was everywhere. So
Yeah. And we've had people mow it, and then it gets into the waterways and down it goes.
yeah.
We don't sell it in our tree program, but it is out there a lot.
I
I wish
if
it had a little better bank stabilization because it's out there everywhere.
I guess if you have canopy over it, I mean, it looked like you had a lot of canopy in a lot of the pictures, but there was just also knotweed, which I found to be pretty strange that you have shade and knotweed.
Yeah. Jimmy Joe says, what's the black walnut? He says maybe we can plant some black walnuts. He thinks that'll take care of it. So we may do a demonstration project and see if that does work. But we do get a lot of pushback. We've had people actually ask us where they get knotweed for their bees. And we said, we might better just move your bees to the knotweed as take the knotweed up to you.
Right. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, Mark, so much for an awesome presentation. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you have any questions that come up, join us next week. You can ask Mark then.
See you next week.
All right, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.